I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, first thing this evening, before we get started on our regular meeting, we were supposed to have a public hearing on tax abatement 2018-3. That has been requested to be tabled until next month, so we will just conduct that before our October meeting. Chris, I don't think we need anything else with that, do we?
No, it was previously tabled the month before, correct?
Yeah.
So we don't have to do anything, yes, and it was a request to continue from the party seeking the abatement. So it was not the city's request, it was the other party's request.
Any other questions on that? Today is Tuesday, September 7, 2021, time being 7 p.m. The meeting of the Greensburg City Council is called to order at this time. Please silence all electronic devices. To comply with Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, the city requests that participants in this meeting complete a voluntary anonymous survey that's on the table in the back of the room. Will you please call the roll?
Yes. Jamie Kane.
Here.
Kevin Fleetwood. Rick Ensweller.
Here.
Daryl Poling.
Here.
Diana McKenzie. Here.
Kevin did tell me he was going to be a little bit late. You should have received minutes from August 2nd, 2021. Any additions, edits, or corrections to that? If not, we'll take a motion to approve those as presented.
So moved. Second.
Motion made by Daryl, seconded by Jamie. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Abstained.
Rick abstains. The August 16th meeting minutes for 2021 were also presented. Any additions, edits, or corrections to those? If not, we'll take a motion to approve that as presented.
So moved. Second.
Motion made by Rick, seconded by Jamie. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Old business, first up, the clerk treasurer, Amy Bournes.
Yes. This is for the animal control additional appropriation ordinance that we talked about last month. Any questions on this?
This is
This is the second reading. I'm sorry. This is the second reading. Yes.
If not, we take a motion to approve that as presented. Motion made by Jamie, seconded by Vieta. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Up next, we have the second reading of ordinance 21-12 for the for the garbage and trash. This was mostly the edits and cleanup related to that with Sarah. Any questions for Sarah on second reading? We didn't make any changes.
No.
Motion to approve.
Motion's been made by Daryl. Is there a second? Seconded by Jamie. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Thank you.
Okay. Up next, we have ordinance 2021-15, which is our stormwater utility rate. And Sheila McKinney with Christopher Burke Engineering is back with us this evening. Ron or Sheila, do you want to talk about some of the language changes that were made? They were pretty not impactful in the sense that we just did a better job of including items.
Good evening. There were a few proposed revisions. One of them that comes to mind, part of the ordinance spoke about a stormwater division of the wastewater utility. And in the appeals language, it talked about the stormwater department. So everything was changed to be stormwater division. There was, in one of the sections, said that each user was to pay a rate. That language was revised to say each property owner would pay the rate. And then the other two, maybe slightly bigger changes. It was never intended that public street or road rights of way would be assessed the stormwater fee. So language was introduced that clearly separated out all public road rights of way from this ordinance. And the final change was there is some property on the east side of town that is within the stormwater, the wastewater service area, and that property was excluded because they are far enough removed from the city that their stormwater doesn't get into either Muddy Ford or Gas Creek. It probably gets into Sand Creek, but it's further south of town, and it doesn't affect the city's stormwater. So those were excluded. I believe that was all of the changes.
Any questions for Ron on the language component? Chris, I think you've reviewed this as well as part of our ongoing conversation.
Yes, and I'm fine with all of the changes that were made subsequent to the last reading.
There was one other change, excuse me. We added an appeals procedure, so if someone thinks that their assessment is not correct, they may contest either the class of property as defined in the ordinance, or they may contest the impervious surface area on their property. And the way the ordinance now reads, they would, through my office, get an application for such relief. They would need to provide detailed data as to why the original assessment might have been erroneous, and then that would go before the Board of Works in a hearing to consider if the assessment was correct or not.
And I can also attest to all of the council members that this version of the stormwater ordinance is consistent with the similar ordinances of other municipalities of our size in the surrounding community and state.
I guess maybe my question is not, comments not about the rewording. I think those are fine. It's just more about the fee, I think itself. And I think we started off a little high on this. So it'd be my opinion that we change that rate from $7 to more like $3.50.
Sheila, do you want to comment on to Jamie's point about what you see around the state and what those impacts would be here?
Yeah, the amount from for the stormwater utility is based on need, and there is a substantial need for stormwater improvements in the city, and that was sort of a way to balance to get one or the other. And so the average for the state is about $5.75. Recent studies that have come out are showing closer to $7, being more like a nation average. So you definitely have shown the need for the utility. Definitely a lot of stormwater projects that do need to be done. And that's what it's based on.
I don't think there's a question about the need. I think every member of the council, we all voted to approve the first reading. I think that was, we agree there's a need for something like this. I mean, we're going to talk about utility rate increases they had tonight and other things that we're going to be talking about. I think it's a lot. And so that's my opinion that, you know, maybe I think we started off a little aggressive. We've already got an automatic, it's a 3% year-over-year increase, I think, in the ordinance already.
Right.
And so there's already a mechanism to increase that over time.
I can appreciate that. Other communities that we've worked with, they do regret going lower, because it's harder to do an increase than it is to start with the amount that you do. And even this is not enough to meet your needs. So I just think you may regret it. Years to come.
In the original study, based on a stormwater study that was done 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And then Sheila and her people updated the cost of that. What was in that study is $13 million worth of work in today's dollars. We had originally looked at trying to generate $1.5 million a year, and that was the $7 rate. And probably And I might also add, $13 million are capital projects. They're not routine kinds of things like upgrading storm inlets throughout the city that are existing. It's really, they're all big projects that produce that kind of an income. There are other things that we can do. We're probably all familiar with the field sewer on North Street. That's not a part of the $13 million. That's a need that the city has, that quite frankly, right now is unfunded.
I think part of what we looked at too was we kind of worked backwards from the 10-year-old stormwater project survey that only two of the 15 projects identified had been completed. The retention facilities out along Baroshell and Montgomery
Yes.
had been done on Gas Creek. Those two.
And those were done predominantly because of the flood and the FEMA money. There was a cash stream available, so those could be worked on.
Yes, from the 2011 incident. 2009. So it's not like we picked up imaginary numbers. We did work off of something that had been on the shelf for a decade to make an impact. And I think part of this too is, we look at this rate and we can actually accomplish something with the funds that are generated out of this $7 mark. I think it becomes much, much more challenging to show progress and do substantially large projects when we have 600,000. That's still a lot of money. I'm not making light of that in any capacity, but how do we chunk away at $13 million worth of capital outlay without the revenue stream?
One other thing to think about. So we did attempt to build in an inflation factor into the ordinance of 3%. I dare say that this year alone, construction cost inflation was 7 to 10%. Now that may be COVID and all that's coming from that, but I think going forward, we're gonna see construction inflation at 6 to 7%. So even with our 3% inflation factor, we're falling behind.
I'm in agreement with Jamie on this. Quite honestly, I wasn't even wanting 350. I think that's too much to get the residents in Greensburg with at one time. And as far as the 10 years ago, we should have probably had this in place 10 years ago, and we wouldn't have this discussion. And I'm sorry if I offend you, but it's quite honestly, step and say $7 a natural, it should be more. You're not the one paying it every month. The residents of Greensburg are. So, how you eat away $13 million, one little project at a time, over time. And we're not gonna make up 10 years of not addressing it overnight with this ordinance at $7 per month per resident.
And I think also the fact that, as Jamie stated, we're looking at another utility hike later on in the meeting. We just hit the residents with the trash pickup increase. We're throwing a lot out in just a short amount of time.
I know what project we've done the last year that we did, we have a couple million to throw at it, but I voted no for it. We don't know what that one is. I mean, spending's gotta be done, but it's gotta be done in a more fiscally responsible, like $7 per month per resident, it's not there.
I feel the same way.
Can we find a number that we can agree to for year one? And then can we look at just, instead of the 3%, like we're talking, like we've done 2016, we did water or wastewater over 3 years. 2019 is not there. 2019, we did water for over 3 years with more than just inflationary numbers. Can we have that conversation if we started $3.50 or $4 and look at maybe $1 a month per year increase. So then in the next 3 years, we're at our 7, but we're not doing it right out of the gate.
We can have the discussion, but I don't know if that's for it. You can have it all night long. Like I said, I thought 350 was too much to start out with. I mean, come on, it's a problem that's been around, this study's how old? 10 years? Should've had the stormwater utility 10 years ago. We're not gonna make up 10 years of time overnight. It's gonna take some time to make it up. And I'll side with Jamie at the 350, even though I don't even think it should be that much starting out.
I need to be on the agenda to speak.
We'll get to public comment in just a minute.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Does anybody else, this gentleman, before he speaks? Sir, if you don't mind, come forward. Please state your name and your address for the record into the microphone. And we'll,
Thank you for allowing me to speak.
yep, we'll give you a couple minutes.
My name is Mark Roselle, 504 South Route Drive, Greensburg, Indiana. Thank you for bringing up some points. I've lost track of the rate increases now for the water company, but I know we still have more of those coming. Our sewage treatment plant seems like it's an ongoing issue for rate increases to keep up with IDAM and all the other things that we have to keep up with. It just seems like there's continuous construction there at all times. The water bill now at my home is almost $100 a month. Now and I'm not complaining about the trash whatsoever, because where can you get your trash picked up for what we pay? We can't. The guys do a tremendous job. We have some superintendents here that drive old trucks so the employees can have good equipment, which is wonderful. I'm not saying that they need new trucks, but there are some superintendents that do drive old trucks to keep the money going for the equipment. I think another thing that's been hashed around is this bike path going out Park Road, more money spent, more dirt taken away. Is those people's taxes going to decrease because the property size is smaller? Don't know. COVID money supposedly purchases how many properties? That, according to what I've researched, the hospital pays no property tax. Those parcels that were purchased were paying property tax. So we've lost how much tax in those properties? I just feel that right now, we don't need any more added to our water, sewer, any other bill. I think the reins need to be pulled back and some reevaluation done, excuse me, because, and a lot of this has come about, I shouldn't say a lot, some, because of all the milling processes that's went on for the past 40 years on the streets. We don't have any curbs anymore for this water to run to the storm drain. I mean, a lot of it is gone, correct, Mark? A lot of the curbing that we had is now gone.
We've tried to bring some of the curbing back.
But a lot of it is now gone.
But we haven't taken any away with the milling process. We've actually brought it back.
Okay, you go up front of my house, the curbing is gone. Because of
Correct.
milling, correct?
No, it was done when they resurfaced your street years ago, and they didn't take anything off of the concrete.
Okay, well, they built up then above the curbing, but we
Yeah.
have no curbing. That's what I was trying to say, and then it runs straight into the yards. So, storm drainage, you got a pipe this big, and you're trying to put this much water in that pipe, never gonna happen. Never. I don't care how hard you push. And I just don't think pushing more funds down the residents' throats is going to solve this issue that's been ongoing now for a long, long time. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Roselle.
Mayor, may I say something?
Sure.
All I would like to do is, Jamie, I think,
Sorry, you have to say your name.
Jean Johanneman.
Thank you.
Jamie, I think in reference, I know you give a report at the end, but I think the rate increase for the sewer department ought to be a part of this conversation. If you would please state the figures from that rate increase that was just passed.
We're gonna
by
talk about it,
board.
but it's 24% over 3 years, or 23.46% over a 3-year period, is what the recommendation is. Yeah.
What was what was it, for a 4,000 gallon?
$111, is that the number you were talking about, the $111?
Yeah, it was gonna be like $37 a year for 3 years, which came to $111, is that correct?
Correct, yeah,
Thank you.
yes.
At the end of the three, at the end
At
of
the
the
end of the 3 years, yes.
Yes.
And that was last done in 2016, last impact was 2019 on wastewater. So we're 3 years out on it since the last rate increase. Is there any other conversation about the stormwater utility grid? Are we, I guess I'll ask one more time, is 350 the number, or do we need to talk about slightly more? And if not, I think that at least gets us started. If we would like to talk about annual or just leave it alone for the moment, I still think it's a good place to get us started, to make up some lost ground, but also to keep up where we are currently.
I'll make a motion that we pass on the second reading with the amendment of changing basically the $7 to $3.50, and anywhere else it's referenced, maybe we're taking half of what we're suggesting.
And the language updates.
And
as
language
presented.
updates, yes.
Any further conversation? Motion's been made by Jamie. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Vieta. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, thank you. Sheila, thank you, and to your whole team for all of the work, and we will be in touch about what's next. Under new business, we have Chief Stoermer with a quick update about Saturday.
Hi, good evening. Everybody has RSVP'd already, but just another announcement as well as a public invite to our 20th year 9/11 Remembrance Ceremony. That will start at 8:30 in the morning. We've got a few local singers, a bagpiper, a few speakers, as well as our large garrison flags will be hanging all morning. And this is just to recount the days of September 11th, 2001, as well as remember what time both towers were struck, what towers were fell. We'll do those with moments of silence, and then we'll have a light refreshments afterwards as well. So hopefully those that can join us will, and hopefully we'll have a good turnout. Again, the public is welcome to attend, and begins at 8:30 at the firehouse. Thank you.
Sarah Hamer, Building Commissioner, Resolution 2021-06.
Good evening. My tippy toes. I am here to present a resolution to officially update our zoning map. We've been working on this for about a good year, almost a year and a half, and getting it updated. The last one that was an official zoning map that we found was 1990. So we went back, we spent a lot of time going back through all the ordinances from 1990 to find any zoning changes. It was quite the task, but we have got it completed. And I took it before the Planning Commission in August, and they recommended to bring it before the City Council for approval. I apologize if you didn't get a digital version of it. I called Jeff Steele, and he was on vacation. So all I have is the big one. I can unroll it and show you. We just want to make it official with the mayor's signature on it, and have that finally updated.
Kevin, as the board's appointment to the plan, do you have any comments?
Yeah, we, like you said, at our last planning commission meeting, we went over the map, and they gave us a list of several updates they've made. They said it's been years since it's been done. And it's coming to city council with all board members voted to favor the recommend this updating.
The only thing I've done since the planning commission was I had Jeff Steele print off one with the street names. because it's a lot easier to read versus not having street names, and, it doesn't look too busy or anything. I mean, I can show anybody who doesn't see it, so. We'll have this framed in our office once we put the city seal and the signatures on it.
Speak softly and carry a big map.
Nice and colorful.
Looks good from here.
Would you like to look up?
No, I'm good, thank you. We take a motion to approve it as presented. So moved.
I'll second.
Motion's been made by Kevin, seconded by Jamie. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Okay.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you, Sarah, for all the hard work on that, and the whole team did a good job on keeping that moving. Up next, we have Street Commissioner Mark, Amy, Clerk Treasurer, and Board, Resolution 2021-07.
So this is a pretty simple, straightforward resolution. Every time we create a new position that is a full-time position, we have to come back and create a resolution so that that position can be covered under PERF. And they helped us figure out a way that we wouldn't have to do that, which is just creating a resolution that says all covered positions. So we don't have to continuously be making resolutions for any new positions that are full-time positions created.
Any questions for me on this? It's mostly just a simple cleanup ordinance to improve efficiencies.
Make a motion to approve.
Motion's been made by Jamie, seconded by Rick. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed. Okay, Mark, Street Commissioner, question? On your desk when you got here, you should have received a couple paragraph item. Mark, do you want to explain this a little bit?
First off, I apologize, we didn't get into the ordinance for the trash modifications. This is something that came to light late last week. I think Councilman Fleet would have an opportunity to see the situation firsthand. We have got a very small quantity of residents that I don't believe anybody should have to empty the trash can in the condition they are. Just simply because of infestation, critters, or a couple of the other issues you see on here spelled forth. And I want to get this to you so that I can start enforcement of this immediately, and then we will come back with an amendment to the ordinance next month. And Kevin, you want to offer any?
I'll just offer that when you took and showed me, I was shocked. I was stunned.
I actually took him over to where if you are on the back of my garbage truck and you empty 2 trash cans, you can't get back on the truck because it's turning black with cockroaches. And I'm talking thousands and thousands and thousands of them crawling on you. And he actually sees the guys, they're trying to wipe them off of him. And I got guys coming back to work with them in their shirt pockets, their pants pockets, and they have to take these home with them. And we've got to get this under control.
Is there any way you can put a notice on?
Yes. We're gonna mail them. We'll hand deliver the ones to the residents, and then we're gonna turn around and mail them again.
Other than that, yeah.
In other words, like I said, Kevin and I seen it last week.
Oh, I believe it.
And it's just, it's horrible.
The one trash can was empty, and when you opened the lid, the entire bottom of the trash can was covered in cockroaches. When you opened the lid, they started crawling up the side, crawling out.
This item on the desk was brought up because we would like to find a more immediate solution. We're gonna do it through the ordinance policy, but this way we can start this process. Something like you said came to light late last week, and our trash ordinance doesn't have a way for us to not pick it up, which should be a judgment call, but maybe somebody should be able to make, right? I mean, we don't want this, we don't want those guys to take it, or lady to take it home to their families, we don't want it in our building. I mean, there's lots of things that we don't want to happen. So I would highly encourage that we temporarily adopt this policy, so that Mark and his crew can do what's best, but also we will find a more permanent solution to this as well.
Yeah, I think it's important we find a permanent solution, otherwise they don't pick it up, it sits there and.
Right. And we can try to we'll try to find that's a good point, we should try to find a solution. What if they don't? How do we deal with that?
Right, we need to have that.
And I know means am I suggesting that they should pick it up anyway, that
Yeah.
we don't expect that.
I would take a motion to approve the temporary policy as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Motion's been made by Daryl, seconded by Jamie. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay.
Thank you.
Up next, we have Josh Tressler, Decatur County City IT. This is something, do you have a handout, Josh?
Yes.
This is something, if you recall, way back in early, mid-2020, we talked about this ever so slightly when the first round of COVID money was coming down the pipe. So, Josh, I'll let you take it over. This isn't something that's entirely new, but has been resurfaced for lots of reasons. So, good evening.
Okay, thank you. Kind of page one of this document, and again, I'm going to go through most of this. I just wanted to have it in a form for you to kind of take a look at as well. Decatur County Communications, as the mayor mentioned, approached both governing boards, city council, county council, as well as the commissioners. I believe it was the end of 2020 or maybe the first meeting in 2021 to talk about our radio infrastructure for public safety. The equipment that we have today was purchased in 2015, and some of that was actually several years older. That was already in use by the sheriff's department before the dispatch consolidation. And at the time, the equipment actually was the second class of equipment. They actually had come out with a new model, so we actually did not buy the latest at the time. So we've been kind of working over the last couple of years to put together a plan moving forward to replace them. Since I started in the end of 2019, we've slowly gotten all of our technology areas, our computer equipment, infrastructure in the core sites. We've been trying to get onto rotation plans and get things laid out so we don't have these every 7-10 year, we need $400,000 kinds of purchases, trying to be responsible. So what we've done, we have gone through and worked with Motorola, and I know Director Freed presented a lot of this in previous meetings, but just to kind of recap it, what we had looked at doing was utilizing the original COVID funds with kind of the public safety cutout or carve out that they had set aside in that for infrastructure improvements, interoperability, those kind of things. In the meantime, we have actually replaced part of the system that we had to upgrade due to maintaining requirements with the state, so we can still talk to other agencies throughout the state on the system. So the request initially was $200,000 from both the city and the county from the COVID funding to replace this equipment and to get us on more current, up-to-date technology. Not to scare you or try to make a negative light of this, the issue we're running into now is we are so far behind on this equipment. Not only is it at end of sale, it's end of support. We had some power supplies fail later in the year, and the vendor that supports the system for us, happened. And we ended up finding a manufacturer on the internet that had a handful of them. So we bought one for every one of our consoles just to get by. So as I mentioned before, we had gone to the county a few months ago and discussed their ARPA funding that just came through. And they said, at this point, I think we're ready to go ahead and bite the bullet and approve that project to be replaced. So this is me today coming and asking you to fund the second half of it. Do you have any specific questions? I mean, again, I don't know how familiar you are, but this is basically the equipment that the 5 dispatchers are utilizing now all here to speak to all public safety, police, fire, EMS, emergency management, responding to calls and things like that. So everything is working as is right at the moment, but we we didn't want to make it sound scary or threatening when we came, at the end of last year, but, theoretically, if we have a failure now, we're going to be coming to you saying, we have got to spend this. So we're trying to help utilize, the COVID and the ARPA funding, as it fits.
Questions for Josh on this? The county's using the second round, the one that they just got, the COVID funding.
Yeah, it's the ARPA round one.
Right.
Yes, the second disbursement.
Council members, we do have that. Amy reported on that last month as being deposited the day we had our meeting. That is available. It's 1.3 million, I think. We can use that. We also do have some of the funds left from the first smaller round that we received early in 2020 that allow more flexibility for that money. If this is something, I think it's a good opportunity for something that wasn't planned for, and I guess I would caution, 911 communications to be more long-term planning for large-scale purchases like this. But the funds are available if you would like to invest in this, which I think sounds like something that we need, and the funds are available, either through ARP1 or the previous one.
And we did have the exact same discussion with the county council as well. They said, how do we get out of this, not having this large expense every couple of years? And that's something we're gonna work on in future budgeting. As I mentioned before, we've gotten almost all of our other areas of high-cost equipment to either lease agreements with setup, renewal, or commitments to replace equipment, trying to ease the, spread the budget, to not have to keep doing this. I was around as a consultant when this project happened several years ago, and I think there were some other funding opportunities that arose at that time, that this hadn't been a budgeted item, kind of to war chest away for the replacement until now. That's what we're trying to do.
No, it does not have to be approved in 2 readings because we already have appropriated the money. All we have to do is vote to purchase it, pretty much.
Why is that not a board works?
I think it's probably best to come through you because it's our COVID funds, and we've sort of had this operating understanding that those COVID funds would be brought to you.
Okay.
It
Just
would-
curious.
I think the contract to actually purchase this would be signed by the Board of Works. I think you're saying we like purchasing this, a little bit different than normal maybe.
In the county, we did the same thing. There was a committee that handled the funding portion of it, but the commissioners were actually signing the contracts or any kind of purchases, but the council approved
Green light
projects.
How much money was left in the first round?
$291,618.
So we cover our half of the 31st round.
I would, that money is more flexible than the new COVID money, so I would ask that you allow us to find the best place for it, but approve the expenditure. It will be one of those two.
Is there a kind of timing constraints that they put on us to spend that money or have it spoken?
The first round, they removed all of that when they made it easier to use. So we can just keep it as a line item through the next year. The ARP round 1, I think, is 2 years. I think it's December of '23. Yeah. And I think just either a voice vote of support, or if you want a full-on motion to approve the contract we drafted, if you will, or recommend it to the Board of Works to sign. I think I'm not really sure what you look at something that's.
Yeah, I would say probably cleanest would be just a motion to approve the expenditure and direct the Board of Works, enter into the contract, with the funds to come from some portion of the COVID relief funds.
Is that an okay motion that you? Motion made by Vieta,
Second.
seconded by Jamie. All those in favor of sending this to the Board of Works with that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, item number 2.
So to not go through the entire spiel again, in the same spirit of trying to not hit every governing board every X year with a large purchase. Early in 2020, all of the entities that I currently support today, Public Safety for City of Greensburg and Decatur County, started a project to upgrade our server infrastructure for. Kind of what I mentioned earlier, we're trying to get on a cycle, foreseeable budget item. And we put in 2 new servers to handle all of our public safety infrastructure. So our call taking, our dispatch software, how we handle mapping, getting to the proper home, passing that data out to EMS and first responders. That project has been a good success. Just a brief little background, and then I'll go on to the second piece of this. In the 5 years prior with the old system we had, anytime we had any kind of failure of equipment at either this facility or at the police department, it was an average of 4 to 6 hours complete downtime in all of our systems. Since we've put in the 2 new pieces of equipment, we had one catastrophic event. It was the night of the flooding here in Greensburg and throughout the county, and we lost power at one of the locations. It completely, no generator, nothing. And the system did exactly what it was supposed to do. 60 seconds later, all of the services that were running in that location moved to the other location and came back up automatically. By the time I got here in my truck, everything was working, and I was actually sitting there kind of confused that I haven't done anything yet, why is this working? So the system worked as expected. So project number 2 that I have listed here ties in with the COVID and the ARPA funding. We've received approval for the county funds, the broadband and cybersecurity portion of the funding requirements to increase that cluster of servers, to add additional, as well as our backup solution that we put in as well. So a good example, we have had accidental files deleted out of our system. Before, depending on what type of service that is, I may be getting a tape or a drive or downloading it from the cloud, depending on, every department and entity had their own piece of equipment. What we put in was a device that basically anything that runs on these clusters, it takes snapshots throughout the day, and we can go grab those snapshots and pull them back to either the police department for disbursement to the city or to this location for disbursement to the county. It's a very quick process. Even if we would have a catastrophic issue and lose both of these sites, we can actually run a subset of our services from the data center where the backend is. So one of the things we looked at with the increasing ransomware attacks, fortunately, we've not run into any kind of issue like that that's causing any issues with city services or with data. But the way this backup solution works is it is not modifiable once it's backed up. So if you get ransomware or something into your system that starts infecting and going out, we can actually go back and pull the data directly back off this device in a much quicker time for recovery. So what we put together was a plan to increase at 4 servers. So we would have 3 at the city and 3 at the county, increase our backup solution, and then offer this infrastructure to all city and county services. So servers within City Hall, wastewater, water department, street department. Currently, the police and fire department are already covered on the 2 servers we have as well as county facilities. So courthouse being the main one. The other locations don't have servers at this point. Board of Health, I believe. So again, this was a project that kind of came up last minute. I put together a proposal about 24 hours before it had to go to the state to be approved for the project list. And it came back and they approved it. So the county has actually funded 50% of this. I sat down and spoke with the mayor and said, obviously, even sitting through the meeting tonight, the previous budget meetings, I understand asking for funding and blindsiding you, with funds is not a great thing to do. What I'm trying to do is get us into a point that we can forecast these upgrades and budget and try to consolidate as much as we can, just to keep things safe, secure, internal into our network, and then be able to kind of spread I've done as much as I can, in my current role today with public safety, and we've done that, and just looking to spread that for all city and county services.
Are you, I apologize, because I know you and I talked about this, you asking for the 125 or half of the 125?
125. Yeah, both the numbers on here would be the city's half. And as I mentioned on the first one, I'm not sure if I said it out loud, currently right now, we're working through a couple of licensing things that change the numbers a little bit. So, my request is up to this amount. But I will tell you that we're currently really at like 107,000. There's just about a $50,000 potential change that we're still working through. So that's why I'm requesting that. I don't expect it to be that high. The way the county did it, they did certain buckets of money that we have up to spend, and then the rest would go back for consideration to other projects if not used.
Questions for Josh? Same conversation surrounding funding source. ARPA is available for this, and the two, obviously, the funds are available. We've talked about this fairly extensively, and self-admittedly, sometimes way over my head. But we've talked through it a couple times to find probably what is the better solution. I know we have 3 standalone tower servers in our offices for the different departments, and then I know each of the outlying facilities have one as well. So it's one of those things where centralizing it more secure and getting it in a larger capacity, because we are going to run out of capacity on our other servers too.
Correct. And the other thing, like I mentioned, with the one failure that we did have prior, the reason we had the 60 seconds of downtime is the way the system works. Half of the services run in this location and half run at the police department. And we scale, and the reason we would add 4 additional nodes after each location is that we can lose an entire site. So we could lose this entire building, or we could lose the entire police department. And one site can still maintain all city county operations. So that's why we're looking to add 2 additional at each site instead of just 1. It's just to, obviously if we're gonna ask each half to put in their money, obviously we wanna make sure that everyone is covered in that catastrophic kind of failure. Knock on wood.
Anything else for Josh?
Questions?
I would entertain a motion to approve up to 125 for server infrastructure, again, to be submitted to the Board of Works for signature.
So moved.
Motion been made by Darrell. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Rick. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Thanks, Josh.
Thank you.
We'll be in touch. A couple different things we've got down here. Ordinance 2021-16 is our 2022 budget for the city. This is the first public hearing or public meeting to hear that. We do have our second budget workshop scheduled for the 20th, but we have to have the 2 readings. Is there anything, comments on that?
Just a quick question though, I think, Chief, the fire chief was gonna get us some numbers for, the ladder truck, I think, and then Josh was gonna get us some numbers as well. Have we got those yet, or?
I think we probably, need to follow up on the fire truck component. I will have Reed send us new numbers on the employee issues.
I was prepared for that on the 20th, Jamie, I don't have anything today.
No, okay, I was just asking if we had, yeah, that's all.
No, I was prepared to have everything for you the 20th in our budget hearing, I'm sorry.
Okay, no, you don't have to apologize, I think that's what we talked about.
Okay, I'm just making
Sometimes
sure I
we-
didn't,
So, I was just asking if we had those numbers to look at, that's what I was asking.
not currently, we will.
Okay.
This is advertised on Gateway as the max it can be, and we can change it from there. But, good question. If there are no other questions, we'll take a motion to approve on first reading 2021-16.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Jamie, seconded by Darrell. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Those opposed? Okay, ordinance 2021-17 is the Greensburg Community School Corporation 2022 budget. Superintendent Tom Hunter is here. If you have questions, Tom, did you have anything you want to say?
I think all of you have a copy of the budget. It was given to you about a month ago. With the budget, if you go to the budget page, which is just a comparison, I think that kind of says it all as far as this year's budget. The 2022 budget would be almost $300,000 less than last year's budget. We did cut some out of the budget. Our tax rate for this year, projected tax rate that we'll be advertising is 1.1674 compared to the 1.2097 for last year. So our tax rate will actually probably be less this year than it was last year, as will our budget. Our